Admitting powerlessness over our problems is extremely difficult, and putting God at the forefront of our lives in the face of those problems is even more difficult still. Welcome to Breaking the Cycle. My name is Alan Hyde, and I'm your host. I ask you to join me as we unravel stories of recovery, shift perspectives, and inspire change in those who are seeking answers and solution. Let's get into it. Hey guys, today's reading comes from a book called Courage to Change. For me, detachment is relatively easy with casual friends, where I'm not very emotionally involved. I've noticed that when I'm detached, I can listen to other people being critical or grumpy without being affected. But if members of my family act the same way, I often take on their negative frame of mind. My own behavior shows me that I have a choice about my response to other people's moods and attitudes. What I've learned by comparing these two situations is that detachment involves paying attention to my own mood before I have a chance to take on someone else's. Then I can simply see and hear negativity or anger without becoming negative or angry. I don't have to have a bad day just because someone I love is struggling. This knowledge allows me to let everyone, including myself, feel whatever they feel without interference. Today's reminder: if I pause for a moment before focusing on someone else's mood, I may find out that I have feelings of my own that deserve attention. I will look for those moments to check in with myself today. Detachment is a very common part of the work that I do with clients. It shows itself no matter what the struggle is my client is having with other people, because in our relationships, it's really hard to separate our feelings from someone else's. This is just part of being a human being. It's kind of by design that way so that we could probably survive together in groups. I'm not going to get too much into the biological aspects of our psychology, but we've developed certain ways of interacting with each other that can make some of the tangible skills of detachment difficult. And we need practical reminders like the reading today to check in with ourselves. At least I know I do, and my clients on my caseload report the same, that they need reminders to check in with themselves first. And I like to think of that as the foundational piece of detachment. You're not going to be able to not take someone's emotional experiences personally if you really love them, if you don't know how you're feeling first. And so let me state that again. If you know how you're feeling and you've checked in with yourself, you have some clarity around how you're feeling today or in that situation, you stand a much better chance of being able to see and hear their experience without taking it personally. And that's, in a nutshell, that's what detachment is. It's the ability to see someone we love having a hard time and not allow it to ruin our day. It doesn't mean that we ignore that person. It doesn't mean that we shun that person and push them away. It just means their struggles are not my struggles. Now, I can take someone's struggles and make them my struggles. God knows. We can all do that. But detachment is that specific ability to not do that. See, we all have stuff going on in our lives. We don't need to be piling on other people's problems. And I'm sure we've all heard that sentiment and concept shared before. Detachment is our ability to set a healthy boundary for ourselves and say, hey, I see that you're having a hard time, but I'm not going to get involved in that. I'm not going to let myself internally get as angry as you are if I'm not angry. Right. I'm not going to get upset over a situation that's going on for somebody else unless the situation deems that I should be upset. There's some exceptions to this, like grief and loss is a big one. Pretty much everybody's going to be upset. Right. But where it doesn't pertain is somebody is misbehaving in your life and then consequences are now ensuing and they're upset. And so now you have to be upset because these things have happened to them. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Our call to action in those moments is to hold boundaries for ourselves and say, hey, you know what? This isn't my consequence. and I'm not going to take it on as if it were. And so by checking in with yourself consistently on how you're feeling, this could be getting a journal and writing down with some clarity how you're feeling today, what's going on, what has your mood been like, what are some of your thoughts that you've been having through the day, and checking in with yourself. It can also look like just having that conversation with yourself throughout the day. I have some clients legitimately that have those conversations out loud with themselves, and it helps them. It really helps them. Now, I'm not saying sit in your cubicle at work and start talking to yourself, or in the parking lot, start talking to yourself. I'm saying, hey, find a quiet space and have a conversation with yourself. Check in with you, and you'll stand a better chance with the people in your life that you're in relationship with when they're having a hard time. It's actually one of the most simple tools that couples therapists use when couples come in and they're having problems is, not how they're feeling. I didn't ask you how that other person is feeling. I asked you how you're feeling in this situation. And you'd be surprised how helpful that is, but also how often clients have the response of, well, I didn't think to ask myself that. And that's so normal. We don't often think without reminders to slow down and check in with ourselves. When you start to do it, detachment starts to build. And I'm not talking about, I don't care about you and I don't want to hear anything about your day. That's not detachment. That's like avoidance. Detachment is, I hear you, I see you, I understand you're having a hard time. It's more of like the ability to reflect to people what they're telling you without you assuming it and becoming that. It's kind of like when you see somebody and you really like their style, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're copying their style, and you wonder, like, why? I don't even like this shirt. Why am I wearing this shirt? Or that you see someone that you really admire and really like, and they're speaking a certain kind of way. So now you talk that way too. And then you catch yourself like, why am I talking like this person? That's not me. Right. That's a lack of detachment. That's a lack of boundaries. And we do this in our relationships all the time when our partner gets upset and then we're upset too. And one way to kind of think about that is it's a matter of power and control in a lot of situations in relationships. It's like, I want you to know that I'm more upset than you. I'm upset about this too. Right. But the better way to handle that for connection in your relationships is to say, I understand you're upset about that. Do you want to talk about it? Or I can really understand why you'd be angry in this situation. And the only way we can accomplish that, and that's why I like that they highlight it in the reading, is by consistently checking in with ourselves and being clear with ourselves about how we're feeling. And if you do that, you don't have to be perfect with it, right? Don't let perfection become the enemy of progress. We just try to implement these things as best we can. And I think it's important to state that a lot of the clients I've worked with over time, they start to embrace these things, and they didn't want to in the beginning, but I'll put it like this, like often how I do with my clients is, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose by checking in with your mood and your feelings? You have so much more to gain. So if you have so much more to gain, you have nothing to lose. Why not start? Why not start trying it? And wouldn't you believe it? That over 11 years, the clients who try those things are the ones who get better. It's no coincidence. And I know, from listening to this, you may be thinking like, well, maybe that's not true for everybody, or it won't be true for me. And all I can say to that is I've said the same thing to myself about, when my therapist would tell me to check in with how I'm feeling, but like, I don't want to do that hokey stuff. I don't have time for that. I'm a busy guy. I have better things to be doing. But when I started to do those things, check in with myself, I got better with my boundaries in relationships. I got better at communicating my experience to other people. And over 11 years, I've witnessed thousands and thousands of people do the same thing in their relationships, and it never fails. It's also why it's published in these books, like the ones that I read to you guys, because it's a tried and true, simple tool that works. Check in with yourself and how you're feeling today, and then communicate your boundaries. You don't have to be upset or angry and have a bad day just because somebody you love is having a bad day. I think that's all I got for you guys today. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one. I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of Breaking the Cycle. If you're looking for more information regarding the topics that I discuss in this podcast, jump over to alanhyde.com. The website will be in the description. If you're looking to get involved, make a donation, or to get your hands on some cool Breaking the Cycle merchandise, that will also be available at the website, and we encourage your support. Without your support, this podcast would not be possible. So I just want to thank you, and as always, bless your heart.